What's going on? I'm Broderick Conacero, and this is my common story. I think I've always been the common, if that makes sense. I've always had this inner yearning, desire to have all things in common with those of the faith. Some 3 years ago, God allowed me to bring together a very diverse group of individuals to do the common. We started with conversations at the Kroc Center, in the garage of a man by the name of Don Gilbert, in my house, at Dion's office, just all these places that conversations happen, all because I stumbled upon this opportunity to be planted by Living Hope in Piperton. Out of that experience, there were three things that I remember being just ringing in my ear: accountability, responsibility, and dependability. And as I prayed about what God wanted me to do with the common, those three things were the driving forces to what we created. And so let's play theater for a second. Act one would be accountability. This whole thing started with me by being accountable to a church in Piperton called Living Hope. I had the opportunity to sit under some great leadership and Gib and the plurality and elders of Living Hope. They held me accountable to me being the husband and the pastor that the common would need. And I needed that, and I spent 2 years dealing with that, being accountable to somebody for this vision, this idea that was in here and in here. In the accountability, then it became my responsibility to do what needed to be done. And so I embarked on a journey that would make me have to be as creative as I could be, become a stronger and better preacher and teacher. And so in my responsibility, I'm taking responsibility for going and doing downline. I'm taking responsibility for getting in people's lives like I had never done before. And when I say never done before, I mean never done before. But it was all because this opportunity called the common was requiring me to come out of myself, to start caring about other people. And if you know the common, you know that. Man, I've had the privilege of really walking alongside individuals. I've walked alongside people in spite of whether or not they joined the common or not. On one side, I could walk alongside somebody like a Court Cash who walks with me. And then on the other side, I could walk alongside somebody like Cordy or Cordarius Ellis, who is not a member, but comes in and out of the common, all because of this thing that I do with being responsible for my call, living before them, giving them what the Bible says Broderick is responsible for as a disciple of Jesus Christ. And man, I've loved that part of the common for me, is that the common has made me, it's like that story that you hear about a lot of men. The common is the baby that I had that made me grow up as a pastor, as a preacher, as a disciple. But the last thing that the common did for me was that it also made me become dependable, because I've always been a runner. I run from stuff, especially when it gets hard, when it gets tough. I couldn't finish film school because it required me being dependable, and I wasn't at that time ready to be dependable. I just wanted to get paid. Film school was asking me to be dependable in the classroom, dependable with my equipment, dependable with the scripts I wrote, and I wasn't trying to be that dependable. I just wanted to know how to shoot some stuff and be done with it. And the common, again, my story is that the common made me realize that this thing that God gave you requires you being dependable. It has to be able to lean on you when it's not strong enough. It has to be able to look to you when there's nowhere else to look. And when I look at the common, I see, again, just this broad group of people from 80 to 8 that I've just come to love. And if they need me, I'ma come running. And whatever I gotta be, that's what I'ma be. If I gotta be daddy, I'ma be daddy. If I gotta be best friend, I'ma be best friend. If I gotta be film teacher, I'm gonna be film teacher. Why? Because that's what you do when you have things in common with people. So my common story is simple. It's a story about somebody growing up in God and in the people seeing God do what only God could do, and that's changed me. Welcome to B Sessions. What is B Sessions? B Sessions is where we bring individuals to seeing what it is God desires for them to be. B Sessions is where we cause an individual to take a look within to see if they are being that which the word calls them to be. But the last thing that a B session is supposed to do is it's supposed to provoke the individual that desires to be all that God calls them to be so that they can truly show that they are a follower of Jesus Christ. Here's what we know. In the world we live in, community and discipleship is laughed at, it's mocked. And the reality is that in 2020, we have to be a church with strong community. Community that holds each other accountable. Community that is honest with each other. But most importantly, a community that is transforming one another. And so tonight, we begin this journey by bringing you into the sessions that will help you be what God called you to be. Let's get ready.
I am sensitive. My heart gets broken extremely easily. And I wish when I was 16 that somebody would have told me that my virginity was gonna affect me so much further than the line than that one instance. I'm Aisha, and I'm here to answer the question, why? Why did I choose to wait? Why am I still choosing to wait for my husband to have sex? When I was 16, I cared so much about what people had to say, how people felt. Do you like me? Do you still like me? And when I was 16, I used to put my all into a relationship, and that meant my heart, my mind, my opinions, my body. Not because I wanted to, but because that's what love is, right? That's what you do when you're in a relationship. That's what you do when you're giving 100% to somebody. That's what I thought. And then it was over, and I didn't really understand why I didn't feel loved. So I told my mom, and the look of disappointment that came over her face, the moment that my dad stopped wrapping his arms around me and walked off, that right there is my reason why. I would be lying to you if I told you that God had something to do with it. Why am I waiting? It's because I'm sensitive. It's because my heart gets broken easily. When I was 17, I still waited. I still gave 100%, but the one thing that I had some control over, my body, was no longer going to be the thing that defined your love for me. My heart is still affected, even from the choices that I made a year ago when I was 16. I'm still brokenhearted. I'm still not whole. Those shattered pieces can be broken. Those shattered pieces can be put back together by the love of other people, by my friends, by my family, by the things that I love to do, but my virginity is something that I will never get back. I am no longer Aisha. I now have a piece of you. I am now soul tied to that person. Life continues, and I still put 100% into everybody and everything that I love. And the more I do that, and as the years go on, I find myself drawing back. I have no idea who I am, what I like to do, the things I'm interested in. I've completely fallen out of relationship with God at this point. Who is he? Other than the person that's giving me life, other than the person that I pray to and thank you for my food, my story. Why am I waiting until I'm married to have sex? It took me a long time to find who I am as a woman. I'm 27 and I am just now figuring out that I like to wear yellow. I'm just figuring out what I like to do, who I am, what self-love is, what self-worth is. I'm currently reading a book called A Space Called Chastity, and chastity is a space in which God wants to occupy with you as he guides you to discover the purpose of your life. It is a place where he wants no distractions. It's a place where he's able to completely use you. I want to be in that place. I want to be well beyond that place by the time that I'm ready for my husband, the one that God has sent for me to have sex with, to become one with. I'm constantly trying to figure out, why did I do the things that I've done? Why did I make that drastic decision at 16 to lay down and to give myself to somebody that didn't even know my worth? What was I looking for? I was looking for some worth. I was looking for someone who saw me the same way that the people who love me unconditionally saw me. All those years, I was looking for someone to fill the void that I've always been feeling. And I looked for it in all the wrong places. So then comes years and years of dibbling and dabbling in the things that aren't me, dibbling and dabbling in the life that I'm not called for. There are so many times where my life should have ended, where my life should have drastically, forever, permanently changed. And I'm so blessed beyond measure to be here right now, being able to tell the story of how I came to this point. Now, I told you in the beginning that my decision had nothing to do with Christ, and that's the truth. I want to say December 2018 is when I decided to make that change. I had reached my lowest. I didn't know where else to go, who else to turn to, who else was gonna speak some type of life into me, who else was gonna give me that feeling that I had been missing. And the only person that was there, the only person that hadn't turned away was God. And so I said, you know what? I've been on this journey of celibacy, of abstinence for so long, but I need more. I need a reason beyond that heartbreak. I need a reason beyond what the Bible tells me. I need for my life to be a story. So I started talking and sharing my testimony. And through that, I found you even more than I found you in my moment of brokenness and silence and solitude. And now I'm here, and now I'm able to share my story with everybody that's willing to listen. I'm able to tell people that it's okay to wait. It's okay to take that time to find your purpose in God, to allow him to order your steps, to allow him to mold you and form you and to shape you into what he wants you to be, so he can fill you to the capacity in which he knows you're able to take. It's okay to wait. It's okay for you to love you. Figure out what color you like to wear. Figure out the things that you love. It's okay. Nobody's judging you. Nobody can. How can they? Your self-worth. What do you deem yourself? What does God deem you? How much of you does he take and ask for nothing in return? So I'm here to share my story of now being 27, still celibate, still on fire for God, even more than I was a couple years ago when I started my journey. I'm hoping that my story can change somebody's life. I'm not perfect. I haven't always been this way, but it's the journey that makes the person, not their beginning and not the end. So thank you.
Man, great story, Aisha.
Thank you.
Powerful, definitely.
Yeah.
And you being what God called you to be. So we got an audience that's gonna watch this.
Okay.
And that audience is gonna have some different mindsets because again, 27, you got 22-year-olds,
Yeah.
20-year-olds looking at it. They calling you, you know, extra, super spiritual.
Yeah.
Having a mentality basically that's like, you know, my sexual sin ain't harming nobody.
Right.
But, you know what I'm saying? So what's the big issue? What would you say to that mindset, to that person that's watching tonight?
It's not about anybody else. I think it's more so about you. After you have sex with that person and comes a heartbreak, how bad is that heartbreak? You have now given your heart, you've given your body to that person, and so it's no longer yours. It has now become theirs that they've taken with you after a broken heart. So what of yours do you have left? It's not about who else you're harming, but the amount of hurt that you're gonna feel from it, from not having that one little thing that you did have some control over.
Wow, okay.
So.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
You know, in this, again, this is all about community discipleship at the Common. You also got a mindset, you know, especially, and I hear this a lot, in that Gen Z community, where it's kind of like, you know, well, so-and-so had sex and so-and-so had sex. So, you know, what's the big deal? Again, what do you say? Because your decision clearly, you took everybody out the equation but yourself and God. So what would you say to that person that's watching tonight? Because the reality is I'm not stupid, been in this thing for about 20 years. So I know the mentalities that exist, you know what I'm saying, when you kind of create these moments. So what would you say to that person that likes to throw other people's sin in to justify the sin that they are in?
No sin is bigger than the other sin. I mean, it tells you that clear as day in the Bible. But what does your heart have to give after your sin has been committed? That person isn't gonna be your answer into heaven or into hell. So what you carry around is gonna be the burden that you're gonna have to live with. It's gonna be the sin that you're gonna have to confess to, that you're gonna have to make right. It's not about anybody else, it's simply about you.
Cool, all right. Last question for you. What words would you give to our community leaders after listening to your story to kind of help them in driving a conversation with their community and those that because of this session they'll bring into their community? What kind of advice or thoughts you would give them to kind of shape the conversation and the experience moving forward?
Let your sheep, let the people that you are bringing to Christ, let the people that you are in discipleship with know that they don't have to start off being perfect. I didn't. You heard me tell that in my story. I have not always been abstinent. I haven't always been a virgin. So let them know from where they are, it can be the start of something new, from where they are right now in their life, as long as you're ready to meet God where you left him. There goes the beginning of your story. There goes the beginning of your relationship with Christ and the decisions that you're gonna make from this point forward. So don't cast their past out. Don't hold it above their head and make them feel bad for the things that they have done. Just let them know that moving forward, these are the things that are expected. These are the things that are gonna make him proud of you. These are the things that are gonna make you the new, better version, best version of yourself.
Oh, hey, Boogie, my girl. All right, y'all, that's Aisha Hopsu.
Bye, guys.
And this is B Sessions.
It's just me and you. I feel so lost because I don't know what to do. Now what if I choose the wrong thing to do? I'm so afraid of disappointing you. So I need to talk to you and ask you for your guidance, especially today when my mind feels so cloudy. Lord, guide me until I'm sure. Oh, I open up my heart. Oh yeah. Oh, see my hopes and dreams, they all fading fast, and I'm all burned out, and I don't think my strength gonna last. So Lord, I'm crying out. Lord, I'm crying out to you, 'cause I know that you're the only one who is able to pull me through. So I need to talk to you, oh, and ask you for your guidance, especially today, Lord, when my mind feels so cloudy. Lord, guide me until I'm sure. Oh, I open up my heart. Oh, so show me how, Lord, to do things your way. Say, don't let me make the same mistakes, Lord, over and over again. Lord, let your will be done, and my will be the one to make sure that it's carried out. Lord, and in me, I don't want any doubt. That's why I wanna come to you. Yes, I do, Lord, and ask you for your guidance, Lord, especially today. Lord, when my mind seems just a little bit cloudy, Lord, you will get me through. Lord, I open up my heart. Oh, just one word will make a difference in what I do, Lord. So get me until I'm sure. Lord, I open up my heart. Oh, just one word. Oh, just say one word. I open up my heart.
I'm Latisa Douglas. I was born and raised in Memphis/Millington, Tennessee. And how I have become who I am today. I grew up starting off in a single parent household. My mother actually had no clue that she was pregnant with me. So it was just odd from the beginning. Nevertheless, my mother worked several jobs. She was going to school full-time, working full-time, just the whole 9 yards. So a lot of our time growing up was spent with my grandmother. In 2001, my mother is now married, and they had a tragic accident. And that's really where I kind of felt like my life changed. Because in our home, my mom was diagnosed with several different diseases, myasthenia gravis, neural nerve disease. She was diagnosed with a brain tumor. My mom would fall all throughout the house, just a lot of different sicknesses and illnesses I was exposed to. 12 years old, my role in the house changed. So I never really had an opportunity to have that relationship with my mom growing up, just because I became her caretaker, from cooking to cleaning to bathing her, getting her out of the tub. I became that woman, paying bills online, the whole 9 yards. I was not the only child. My brother Orlandis as well. We just were really, really tight because one, growing up single parent. At the time, it was just us a lot with my grandparents, but then going on to when my mom became really sick, him and I, just our bond was undescribable. I also picked up basketball. My brother introduced me to basketball during the time where my mom fell really sick again. This is around age 12. I started playing basketball. We used to go around the neighborhood. We lived in Raleigh at this time, and literally for lunch, extra lunch money, we would challenge people throughout the neighborhood, because my brother felt like I was cold. I felt like, you know what I'm saying, I could do a little something with the basketball. So that's where I actually started playing the game of basketball, and that really carried me throughout my life. Nevertheless, because me and my brother were just so close, he had to do pretty much everything that my mom couldn't do. So I'm talking about, we're driving at 12, 13 years old, just literally everything. I'm talking about knit tight, best friends. And then in 2007, at the age of 16 for me, the worst tragedy ever took place within our home. It was June 13th of 2007. We were actually in our home. I had a basketball camp that was coming up later that day. It was myself, my brother, cousins, one of my basketball teammates. We were at home. My mom was gone to work at this time. She was actually able to go back to work. So it was just us children at the house. We were playing, running around, doing just what kids do. No parents there, having fun. My mom called and she said, hey, make sure that you clean up the house before you leave. Shortly after hanging up the phone with my mom, my coach called and said that, hey, I'll be there in about 10-15 minutes to get you and pick you up for camp. So at that point, hung up from the phone, I'm yelling at everybody in the house, hey y'all, let's go, we gotta clean up, we gotta get stuff together, woo woo woo. So I proceeded to our back room where the night before we had pizza and just had different stuff all over the house. So I gathered everything. Well, at that time, my brother and other people that was in our home were still playing. I was coming around one corner with cups, knives, forks, other things in my hand, and my brother was being chased around another corner. And at that corner, we collided. And the knife that I was carrying in my hand pierced my brother's side. At that point, literally everything fell out of my hands. I did not know right then. Grabbed everything, proceeded to the sink. Next thing you know, my brother was jumping up and down and he was just screaming my name, Tisa, Tisa, it hit me, it hit me. At that point, not knowing what hit him, he fell to the floor, got back up, ran to the couch. I followed behind him, lifted up his shirt, the biggest gash of his life. So of course, we proceed calling 911. I'm running outside, banging on neighbors' doors, trying to get help. And then my one and only brother, he was airlifted to the med, and shortly later, he was pronounced dead. So being 16 years old, everything that I had dealt with at that point, I just didn't understand how God would allow us or me to experience what I was experiencing. I remember that day sitting on the sidewalk because when the police came, they got everybody out of the house and they handed everybody white sheets of paper and they wanted us to write down what happened. And I remember sitting on the sidewalk just asking God, if you could just please just save him. Just save him. I'll serve you. I'll take care of him. Whatever I need to do, God, I just need you to save him. And when God didn't, quote unquote, in my mind at the time, when he didn't come through, I couldn't quite grasp at 16 how I could go through that or how God would allow that. I believe growing up, we always heard, you know, everything that happens, God allows. And I couldn't wrap my mind around how a loving God could allow me to experience that. How a loving God, one, could kind of shift my relationship with my mother growing up due to her illness, then a loving God allowed for my brother to go the way that he did. And so from that point, I found myself very depressed, wanting to take my life. Suicide definitely was at the top of my brain. I remember going back to school, still playing basketball, but trying to make sure that I still kind of kept the image of, you know, everything's okay, because if my grades fail or if, you know, I stopped producing on the basketball court, then I felt like they would want to rush me off to some type of institution. But I knew that I wasn't just suffering just mentally, but I definitely was suffering from a broken heart. So fast forwarding to that, just really being in that down place, I didn't have a full experience of in regards to like relationship when we talk about just remaining celibate. From there, actually my first introduction to sex, I was actually sexually abused. So that also turned into the place of, God, this life that you have given me, how can you be real? Fast forward, I made it through. I made it through high school, ended up getting a scholarship to UT Martin. Decided while I was there, my mom got sick. They found a growth on her thyroid. So I decided, you know what, I want to be closer to home. And so I was offered a scholarship by Union University. Now Union actually offered me in high school, but remember, I wasn't a believer in high school because I couldn't wrap my mind around how a loving God could allow me to go through what I went through. So Union is a private Christian institution. So I knew, you know what, I don't want any parts, again, because I'm not a believer. Nevertheless, you know, God has a way of just making our path straight. So I ended up having to go to Union University, and I remember sitting in my coach's office and him asking me, are you a believer? And I told him straight up, I'm not a believer. It's kind of hard, again, for me to believe in a God that would allow my life to be this. But that never stopped him. He continued to send scriptures and wanted to make sure, you know, that I was cool, that I heard the gospel. And I was really, really struggling with depression and suicide. In January of 2010, I was in my dorm room and I had a bottle of pills in one hand, and I remember sitting there yelling and screaming out like, God, if you are real, please save me, please save me, please save me, with a bottle of pills in my hand. And then I remembered a scripture, 2 Corinthians, and it was 12:9, and it was just saying, his grace is sufficient. His power is perfected in our weakness. And in that moment, literally, while I was calling out to God, I just felt a peace and a presence like no other. In that moment, I remember just my coach walking me through and telling me, you know, what I needed to say or what I could say. And in that moment, I did it. I asked the Lord into my life. And from there, I was on a road just to be on fire, to share with others just what Christ had done for me. And I realized that although we go through things, that doesn't mean that God is absent. If we look throughout the Bible, there's several different stories that we can point to where people had to go through things in order to have a testimony. That's where our testimony comes from. So from there, literally just being on fire, and that was in 2010. Now, because we're talking about celibacy and all of that, I actually did not become celibate until 2012. And then that's when I made this, actually July 4th, 2012, I made the decision, you know what? My body is my body. I wanted to fully understand and be in a place of where I knew that if I was to go, that, you know what, I'm going to be with Christ. So there wasn't an easy place to get to. Several times of just being in a position like, oh God, please don't let me be pregnant. Oh God, please just let me just make it this time, God. Let me make it this time. So eventually graduated from school. And I came back home to Memphis, Tennessee, and my main goal was I wanted to make sure that I was in a church home that was going to continue to pour into me, continue to push me to become the woman of God that God wanted me to become.
All right. Hey, y'all. I am Perpetual Fan. I was born in the South Memphis, Tennessee. I'm I would like to say, the almost middle child of 6. I'm a twin. Unfortunately, I wasn't born alone. Someone had to come and steal my joy. I grew up in South Memphis. By the age of about 8, I had already been through maybe about 3 homes. So I was with great-grandmama, to auntie, to my sister, who was a blessing, who actually took me and all my siblings in and raised us up. So very early, I was exposed to a lot, way more than any 6-year-old, 7-year-old probably should have been exposed to. Mom was drug addicted. Dad was kind of in and out. He wasn't really anywhere around. Family that I was with prior to had other issues that was not uncommon for us to see in the household. So once we got with my sister, who actually took us in and raised us, she kind of started to show us something different, but it's kind of hard for you to show someone what you don't have. So I started early, and I like to say on this journey of searching for something. So very insecure. I was born with a cleft left ear. So very early on, I struggled a lot with not only rejection, abandonment, but then here comes this whole giant insecurity that's a beast by itself. So I started to search early on for something, not sure what it really was. So with that searching, of course, led to me starting things a little bit faster than I wanted to. So lost my virginity at about 15 years old. Still growing up trying to find this thing, trying to mask all the insecurity that I felt, trying to supplement for what I didn't have at home, and different things like that as well. And so I went to Carver High School, you guys, the Carver High School. I'm gonna throw that out there. And I graduated, went on to Lane College, one of the first in the families to go to college, and graduated. But while at Lane College, sophomore year, I met my daughter's dad. And we started to date, and he was a pacifier to everything that I had already had dragging along with me. So end of junior year, beginning of senior year, I had a beautiful baby girl, Kendall Ivy, who is amazing, by the way. So right after I graduated, she was 6 months. I moved back home, literally. The relationship failed, a whole lot of emotional abuse, verbal abuse, and different things like that. I made up in my mind, I'm like, I'm going home. This isn't for me. Came back to Memphis, but God was nowhere in that plan. And I made a lot of plans. I kept telling myself, hey, when I get back home, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna be good. I really thought that I'm gonna have a dude, we're gonna be straight, we're gonna make a life, I'm gonna have a good job because I have a degree. And I had all of these plans for myself, but I quickly learned that God doesn't operate with your plan. So once I got home, I remember maybe 2 or 3 months after I got home, my daughter's dad was coming back and forth to Memphis, because in my head, I'm like, all right, we're gonna make this relationship work from a distance. And then, you know, that's gonna fix everything. So at that time, not really knowing what God was doing in my life, I was actually headed to take him back to Jackson, I think maybe a month or 2 after I came back home, because we were trying to do long distance. And I had a Blazer at the time, and my daughter was still in Memphis with my sister mom, is what I like to call her, who raised me. And we were headed back, and my car slid, the tire blew out. We slid from one side of the expressway to the other, going over 90 miles an hour. So I don't know if you're familiar with the rail guards that protect you from going into oncoming traffic. And I was a believer in God. I grew up in a pretty surface church, I would like to say, but I don't think that I really knew God at that time. And while we're sliding, I'm literally calling out to God. Well, I was saying, stop the car, press the brakes, and I was driving. And once we slid, the 2 wires had torn out of the ground. And so there was one last wire holding on to that median. And I was like, God, if you're real, please stop this car. The car instantly stopped. 2 guys got out of the car, ran over to where we were. You can literally see my truck positioned into the middle of the oncoming traffic. So 2 guys got out of the car, they came over, and they were like, this guy, this Caucasian brother, he came over and he said, I don't know why you're here, baby girl, but God must have a reason for you to be here. So they came and picked us up, took us back to Jackson. We walked away with no scratches, no bruises. But that day started to challenge me. I came back to Memphis after that, and I got on Facebook and I saw something. And so at that point, I'm hysterical, y'all. I'm crying, I'm boo-hooing, like, this ain't gonna work. I'm finna be a single mama and different things like that. And so I sat in the driveway. And that was not the plan that I had for myself. I sat in the driveway, and I remember like literally sitting in my car, and I was telling God, like, and not expecting a response or for him to do different things, but I just felt like that was the right thing to do, to call on to God. Like, God, listen, I'm not going back. If I go back, God, I need you to snatch me from it. Don't let me go back, because I knew that I wasn't strong enough to do it in my own strength. So slowly from that, I got connected with the Innovation Church. I was calling and calling to Leadership Empowerment Center, trying to mentor with their particular program. For some reason, I was very, very persistent, like calling every single day. Like, hey, can I come volunteer? I wouldn't get an answer. And then when I would get an answer, they're like, oh, we're gonna wait, you know, da 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 da. They ended up eventually calling me back to volunteer. Maybe a month after that, Pastor Meyer actually invited me to the 507 service. So literally from that time, this was 2013, from that time, every service that I attended, I feel like God was taking hyssop and putting it on wounds. I was boo-hooing every service, and I didn't know that God was breaking me to show me something different. So imagine a God, you've been through all of this, and he comes along and shows you that there's something for every hurt, every past experience. I woke up out of my sleep one night, and I told you guys I struggled a lot with insecurity, and he started to tell me that I was fearfully and wonderfully made. I never ever read this scripture in my life, and I went to it in the Bible, and I wrote it down. And so I started to meditate on that, and I feel like that was the first area that he started to heal. And so I had never, ever in life heard of celibacy. Like I said, I went to a pretty surface church. If you were having sex, you should have got married, because that was the way that it was done. There were no conversations cultivated around premarital sex or different things like that. So of course I never heard anything about root issues or things that are tied to you when you're born, soul ties that are brought along once you're sleeping with people. So I remember in service, my pastor called me up and he prayed over me, and he started to denounce, and you guys, I was still new at the church, but he started to denounce soul ties over my life as well, and he mentioned my child's father. And I can't even explain the feeling that I was feeling. And so I remember sitting in the car talking to my then best friend, and I was like, and of course she's not saved. And we were talking, I was like, girl, matter of fact, we were actually about to go out on a date with some guys she knew. And so I was like, girl, I think I'm gonna start being celibate. And we were laughing because I was like, Pep, are you really? Like, you can't do that. Like, literally, this was the conversation I had with her and myself. Like, nah, you can't do that. Like, that's stupid. That don't even make sense. How would you even do that? And so I started around this time. God started to deal with me on just kind of cleaning me up, letting me know that my body was his and that he had something more for me to do. And so I quickly learned that after that, you can be celibate all day long, but if you're not dealing with the root of the issue, then you're just repeating the cycle over and over. So I look back now during that time, fast forward to 2018, where God started to clean my life up between those 4 years as well. And I'm like, dang, God, you really drugged me along to show me that this Pep now needed that Pep then, so that I could start to become who I am growing into in Christ. So that's my story, y'all. Was a different year for me. I think it was a year of complete surrenderance to God. I think I had areas to where it was like, God, I'm gonna give you this, but I want to control that area. But 2018 broke me in a different way, and I met some amazing people along the way. My sister Latisa, we had already known each other, but we got extremely close mid 2018. And around that time, towards the end of 2018, I was courting. Yeah. I started courting during that time. And I remember previous conversations that we had that was pretty surface, to where I think that God was very intentional about why he needed us to kind of come together for the next season in life. So if you want to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so in 2018, as she said, just God allowing us to connect beyond the surface. I previously, in 2016, sorry, going back just a little bit, I kind of went through a season of attempting to date. And through that, nothing went wrong other than realizing that we both were not ready. Now, he still is my now husband, always will be husband.
Praise
However, in 2016, when we attempted to date, we both realized that there were some things inside of us that we needed to make sure were in line. For me specifically, I would say just realizing throughout my life, I didn't mention just the abandonment that I felt with my father, him giving me up around the age of 10. So I had a lot of rejection issues. I had a lot of acceptance issues that I was dealing with, that I knew that if I was in a relationship, I was going to put that off on my husband. I was going to wonder, well, where are you going? Are you coming back? How are you going to do this? So there were certain things that I knew that I needed to heal, but in order for me to do that, I needed to go deal with the roots. So leading up to us connecting in 2018, when we say we went from beyond the surface, we really went from beyond the surface. We went to the deep stuff and challenge. So then I remember we were in a season, my husband and I, we were in a season of we ain't communicating. Like, bruh, don't say nothing to me. I'm not saying nothing to you. I ain't like it though. He was fine. He is fine. So I'm just like, yeah, it was a struggle, but I needed to invite my sisters into that season, and I let them know, look, y'all, this is where we are. We can't communicate. Ain't no texting, ain't no calling. We walk, listen, we serve in ministry together. He is the youth pastor. I'm the children's director. We walking past each other and yeah, you do not exist. So there was a tough season for me, and I really needed my sister where I can call and say, hey girl, listen, I saw him today and he fine, and I'm just, I just want to talk to him, and please, and they knew that I couldn't, so they challenged me. Yep, you can't do it. We hear you. What you gonna do about that? So even before that, even dealing with those things, I remember asking them in November of 2018, y'all fast with me.
Lord.
The whole month of November, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I told them, listen, I need you all to fast with me because I'm trusting and believing God for this. But in order for it to be, I need him to show me that it is him. And they joined in on that. But even before that, just also going back to the root, we would challenge each other, deal with those root issues, the things that you feel about your mother and your father, you got to deal with that. The things you feeling about your daddy, you got to deal with that. Y'all listen, I called my daddy I have not listened. The last time I saw my daddy was when I was 16 across the parking lot at the funeral of my brother. The next time I saw him was in January 2019 at Innovation Church, where he finally flew in from Texas. But all of that, I just knew I needed to deal with those root issues, but it never would have came about without, the friendship and accountability. Now we can jump into our courtship. Go ahead.
So just adding to that really quickly, so I also realized that I had residue that was lingering on just from the past years and from childhood and things that I felt like God had healed me from. However, you still have to clean the residue off. Like, I wanted no stain of it. I didn't want to drag that into marriage. And it's almost as if God knew. I didn't know, and I probably didn't want it, but God knew that I needed the accountability to even scrub the residue off that was lingering around. So what makes it very unique with us, we were actually courting around the same time. And our amazing husbands. First of all, y'all, let me add this. My husband is the most amazing man in life, and he was my friend 3 years because he ordered Christian apparel from me, never approached me, never shot any shots to try to date me or anything like that. So I think once we started to date, our husbands were actually best friends before then. And they actually led the charge with accountability. Now, ladies, let me throw this nugget in there.
Throw it.
There is no such as dating a man does not have a relationship with Jesus Christ.
Period.
No such. You can try to make it work all you want to, sis. He is going to lead you somewhere. Whether he is a believer or not, he is leading you somewhere. So if the fruit does not line up, counsel him, sis. You wasting your time.
Absolutely.
So I remember while we were courting, and we started dating December of 2018. I think he started to try to approach me maybe a couple of months before then, and I would say, yes, it was actually October. And I told him like, I'm still getting my life together. I'm still getting my life together. I think I allowed him to take me on a date, what I would call a date, in November. We had a conversation, and the conversation was like, let's try the kingdom date. What is kingdom date? What does that look like? We started to do plans. We started to read books. Now, this is my husband, y'all. He initiated a lot of this, and I needed that. I needed that boundary. I needed for him to be a true man of God, and his fruit showed. So once we actually made it official in December of 2018, we were already pretty close, but we kind of stepped it up a notch. Our husband stepped it up a notch, but we took it to a whole nother level because that's what women do. And so I remember our conversations. He finally had started to come hang out at my house. And I have a daughter, so I'm very, very particular about that. But we would call each other if she started back dating in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. So before then, it was like, hey, listen, they were calling each other, hey, I'm about to leave Pep's house, or hey, I'm about to leave Tisa's house. But we took it to the level, if you ain't calling me by 10:01, sis, and curfew was at 10 o'clock, y'all sinning? Y'all sinning? No, we ain't sinning, da-da-da-da. And it was no such as, well, he gonna leave an hour later than what was expected, because y'all, a whole lot can happen in an hour. And I think that we really needed that particular area. So fast forward, and I'll let Tisa jump in a moment. We got engaged in July of last year. Yay! We got engaged, and so that made us step it up even more, because the enemy does not play fair. We are saying, hey, listen, we want to do life together. We were both kingdom. We were both leadership at church. So we already knew that there were certain things that we had to put in place, because others would be watching our walk a lot, and not because of that, but because we needed boundaries as well, and we wanted to make sure that, for one, our relationship was pleasing to God, and that we were individually as well. So we decided, and I remember years ago I said it, but it sounded so unreal then. I was like, hey, I don't want to kiss my husband until our wedding day. And my husband actually initiated that. He was like, I'm not kissing you until we get married. Now, y'all, I done seen some local jokers that may say, and I'm trying to be sensitive, y'all, but yes, I've seen some local jokers who will say that, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna see how long he gonna hold up with this. But I wanted that, and I accepted that, and I challenged him to hold on to that as well, and he did. So if it was ever a moment where, hey, look, sis, brother man is over here, and listen, the man is fine. Yeah, it's time for him to go. He got to roll. So we didn't allow each other. It's not, and Tisa says it a lot, and so do our other sister friends. Like, accountability is not me calling you saying, hey girl, I done slipped up with Jeremy. I need you to pray for me. No, it's, let me call you, because right now he looking fine. He looking good. I want the man. Sis, listen, I need you to pray for me, listen, or something. And so that's what accountability started to look like for us. So I feel like I'm talking a lot. See, and I'm going to let you jump in, because y'all, it was beyond surface or anything that I could have ever imagined. And to see men of God, like, we didn't have to tell them, hey, you need to call Jeremy, or hey, you need to call Marquino. They were on top of it. If we weren't texting each other at curfew, they were texting each other at curfew like, hey, I just left Tisa's house. I'm headed to the house. All right, text me when you get home. They even went as far as making sure that they had certain things set up on their phones to hold each other accountable. So that's true accountability, and I praise God, and I appreciate God for that season of accountability, because I really believe that I needed it as well. So.
And she pretty much summed it up, but just to close it out, she said it really key, that accountability doesn't take place after you've done whatever it is that you know you've talked to them about. So don't wait till you are in that fallen place. And she said something similar. Literally, y'all, I remember one day I literally text them. It's a group of us. I text them and I said,
could have got some
hey,
tonight.
he could have got some tonight. And I'm just gonna be transparent. That's what I told them. Like literally, he could have got. It's past curfew. We gone, but. Brother man could have got, but I wanted to make sure that I let them in that space so that they can speak to it. And so it's really important. Just y'all, look, accountability is possible. Make it happen. It is needed. I definitely believe we both needed that. Our entire group needed that accountability piece in order to make it. And y'all, being a Christian, a kingdom couple, it's possible. You definitely can make it through and not go into having sex. Your bodies, listen, your husband, your wife, whoever he or she is, they are going to protect your purity. And that's a key piece. It was very important even in our courtship. Listen, we laugh about this now. This is my last point. We laugh about it now. Certain conversations that we have now, being wives and them being husbands, when we sit at the table, it's a different conversation because we're no longer in that season of where I necessarily have to protect my husband. Now, there are some things still in protecting my husband. He won't mind me saying it. Prior to, there were certain things that he needed to break away from, one of them being pornography. I know this as his now wife. He is free, delivered. He makes sure that he did everything that he needed to do prior to coming to date me in 2019. However, me having that prior knowledge as his wife, it is still my duty to make sure that I protect my husband. So certain things that they may talk about or certain things that they may, you know, indulge in, this may be too much, I don't know for the comment, but I'm gonna just be real. So certain things like husband and wife, that may be okay with, okay, phone, here's a picture, you know, video. Listen, it don't fly in our house because I don't want to set my husband up. That's too close to your past, to your, you know, so I can't. So still as a wife, it's my job to protect my husband. However, I can say during that process too, certain things that we'll talk about and expose now about sex or certain things like that, our conversations are totally different. Whereas when we were in that courting stage, listen, we talked about certain things, but there also was a boundary in that because as you date, and you will know this because you will see it as you date kingdomly, there's just going to be a difference. You guys are going to protect each other's purity, but in order to stay on that path, I truly believe that accountability, you have to have the people around you that are going to push you, that are going to challenge you, and I'm just thankful for the connection that God allowed us and allows us to have. So yeah, that's us, and that's accountability.
And you appreciate their fruit on the other side. People of God.
Amen.
So that is it.
All right, so stories they were there. That was it. I'm good with that. Let me ask this question. I said this to our first guest, Aisha Hobson. When you're doing moments like this, when you're creating community, you have different mindsets, different paradigms. One mindset in particular that often comes up from my experience is that mindset that says, you know, my sin ain't harming nobody. So why y'all sitting up here trying to tell me about I shouldn't be having sex, this, that, and another? What would you say to the individual? Y'all can both answer, one can answer, but what would you say to that person, speaking to them in this moment about that mentality, about, you know, my sin ain't harming nobody? What's the harm here? What would you say?
All right. You want to go first?
I will. I think that I would say to someone, like, it really does matter. Someone needs to see you holding on. Someone needs to see you holding yourself. There are women, there are men, there are siblings, kids that need to see you actually being a woman of God, being a man of God. They need to see the integrity in you. So when you're thinking that your sin doesn't matter, you have to also think about the lives that you're dragging along with you when you continue to sin. And that was big for me. And not that I feel like that, oh, I have to live up to the standards of people, but once I gave my life to Christ, it was literally, hey, listen, God, I want to be used by you. Absolutely. And I can't do that dragging my sin along, or I'm telling you one thing, and then when I get home, it's another thing. Now, that does not mean that we do not fall short or anything like that, but it does mean that you continue to strive and continue to press towards that mark. So please God.
Cool.
And I would say in that we kept saying my sin, my sin. I think also going to a perspective and a point that pretty much what you're saying, this life is not ours. My life literally does not belong to me. Yes, I am in this body. Yes, I am living. But when I realize that everything that I do is attached to my destiny, and also that other people are attached to my destiny, it places me in a different, you know, seat and perspective to realize, you know, me falling short could potentially hinder my children that I don't even have yet. Me falling short could hinder, you know, whether I'm in the position of now having a husband or whatever it may be. So just realizing that my sin, definitely, if we say my sin, my sin, my sin, we have to first realize that, you know what, this life is not about me. So I have to move from the place of I can do what I want to do. I'm grown. Can't nobody tell me nothing. No, let somebody tell you something. Let somebody hold your hand and walk you through that. So yeah, your destiny is definitely tied to whatever it is that you're doing.
All right, so watch this, watch this. Yeah, that was solid. What about the person watching this that want to throw old raggedy saints like me who had the premarital sex and say, well, you know, PB had sex. Why y'all trying to talk about this? How dare he bring y'all to the table? What would you say to that mindset?
It's all right, me too. Yeah, me too. But the thing is, we can't stay in that place. I can't look at Pastor Broderick and say, well, you did it too. Listen, my grandmother used to say it. I hear older saints say it now. It doesn't take me getting bit by the same dog to know that it hurt. So if Pastor Broderick, or if I walk down the street, or if Pep walked down the street and you see that she got bit by a dog, you probably don't want to go down that same street, because the chances are you're going to get bit by the same dog. So if I'm going to get bit by the same dog, you know what? It's cool. So instead of me saying, well, you did it, well, this person did it, that person did it, look at it and take it as if, all right, I saw what happened when they did it. I'm going to sit around them. I want to know what happened. What effects happened because of? What's the cause? I want to know all of those things. So it's not so I can throw Pastor Broderick or Latisa or Pep back into the water like, well, you did it. I want to sit around them so I can find out what's going to keep me from going down the same path.
Absolutely. And if I can add to that, I remember 14, 15-year-old Pep, I literally sat and had a conversation with my godmom, my mom, and I was telling them, listen, I want to learn from my own mistakes. I don't want y'all's story. I don't want y'all to tell me. Listen, if somebody is offering you information or showing you their life, like Tisa just said, listen, it does not take me getting bit too to learn. So if I'm taking that story and I want to see the fruit as well, I want to see the fruit that they show. Just because they failed or they had premarital sex and they're preaching a different message now, the fruit will show that their life has changed. And so if the encounter has not happened with God, then that's a different story. But I do want to see that and I do want to learn from that. So,
and I would say even in that place, even, yes, you want to see the fruit, but if somebody is sitting in the seat and they say, well, girl, don't do this because this is what I'm dealing with, then I also say, take heed. You may not see it. Listen, it don't matter. The word can come from those saved, unsaved, whatever. So take heed to certain information that you get that can definitely be beneficial to you. So don't just look and say, well, girl, you just had another child out of wedlock and you telling me. No, maybe they're telling you because they want better for you. Sometimes people, you know, see something in other people that they never saw in themselves. So it's even when we think about parents. I may say something to my child and I want my child to be better than me. Now, I may still be making the same mistakes, and I know they say it's over for, you know, do as I say, not as I do, blah, blah, blah. But if that's an opportunity for you to take that and actually take a different route, do it.
Yep, use those lives as lessons.
Yep.
God. All right, so look, this is B Sessions. Y'all done made this thing be real in here. So let me ask y'all to do me a favor, because like I told you, I was moved by the post, the Facebook post of your stories. And you know, that pulling of the Holy Spirit was like, you need to connect with them. So I need y'all, because again, I reached out to you for this. This was one of the reasons for my leaders. So both of you in your own way, Pep, Latisa, what would you say to my leaders that are leading community moving forward from this video? What advice would you give them on the next step? What does the next step need to be for them?
You want me to start with that?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Listen, leaders, your sheep need to see your integrity. They also need you to challenge them. Do not be afraid to call them to a higher standard. Listen, I praise God that I had a very, very, very honest leader, a transparent that I have. I'm sorry, I still have them. Leader and leaders that challenged me and pulled me up. Because it's a dog-eat-dog world out here. People need somebody who are going to drag them alongside. Like, nope, I cannot let you stay here. Your purpose depends on it. Your life depends on it. So I would say, don't be afraid to challenge the people that you shepherd.
Yep. Cool. And I would say, don't just challenge them, but show it. Make sure as a leader, what you're requiring of whoever you are leading, that you are first being that. The first person that you need to lead well is yourself. So if you're not leading yourself well, then it's kind of hard for you to lead others well. However, if you are still in that situation, I would definitely say, make sure you're starting with you. Make sure you are doing what you need to do. Make sure that they can look at your life and see the fruit. Make sure that you are living that life that you are encouraging them to live. As Pep has said, I praise God to have a phenomenal leader to where we actually get to see them walk out their life, to walk out the things that they are encouraging us to do and encourage us to do. And because of that, I totally believe that definitely helped our process, even our connection, you know, as sisters. It's just beyond just really challenging each other and just being committed to living that thing out, live it out.
And if you never preach another message, they can watch your life. And it says a lot.
Wow. All right, y'all. This is what B-Session, I said B-Sessions. This is what B-Session is. This is what I pray B-Session will do to you, for you, change you.
Found out too, I had some issues with depression from before the series, and you know, with how I grew up with different things, and you wind up being, I'm the oldest of my siblings, and what I had to go through growing up in foster care and different things like that, and it wasn't until I got into a place where I should have been happy and joyful that I started feeling depressed, and it didn't make any sense to me. But we have to also realize that God gave us these bodies, and we have to treat them as temples. So it's not only that you pray and you meditate, but we have to, you know, consume the things that our body needs.
Because your mental function has to be
you have to have your everything balanced. It's not just your actual life, work, and play and stuff like that. So and God, you know, He tells us those things when He says, okay, this is enough to eat, and we still we feel like we got that clean to plate syndrome, you know? And so we have to kind of, you know, think about those things too when we think about our mental health. And as Black women, we just, you know, like I said, as a Black people, it's just starting to come to the forefront right before COVID, you know, and so now it's like we're in this pandemic season, and now it's really coming out. Everybody's job is trying to give them some mental health somewhere. You got free 8 sessions here, and your family and everything too. And it's not just because it's us; it's everybody's going through. And when you don't do the normal things that you are used to, I went through the problem when it first happened, because I'm a person who usually is by themselves, but I work with a small group of people in an office, and for some reason, me being in a little office by myself, I would be in there crying, and Ike would be like, why are you crying? And I'm like, I don't know. And it's because I was not having that just small community of just 2 or 3 people that I'm used to seeing every day, and being able to just walk to their desk, or them holler over the cubicle, let's go get some coffee, let's, you know, talk for a minute or whatever. Not that we didn't talk, but we were, I felt claustrophobic, and so I had to bring my things. I had to get more light. I had to get more vitamin D. I had to go outside. I had to walk, and you know, I brought my stuff out into the kitchen where I had more room. And so, and guess what? Now that everything, you know, like I said, I prayed, I ate, and you know, you guys just said, "Oh, you're looking good. You know, lost a little few pounds." You know, guess what? My office is in the closet. So I mean, so if we share it, you know, so it's just, I think, you have to kind of get yourself just in a place where that you do things that are pleasing to God and that you find that are pleasing to you. And I think people don't, us as women, we're so giving that we don't give ourselves sometimes. And God wants us to have the best.
He does.
And we have to, and that we can't give if we are depleted.
That's true.
So, you know, receiving from God, I think is a huge part of it. But just knowing that, you know, it's a balance. That He also wants us to take care of our minds, our bodies, and our souls.
Right.
At The Common, we believe in the tithe and the offering. The ask is, if you're a member of our body, please be obedient to the tithe. If you're visiting with us and the Word of God is helping you and is penetrating you, the ask is that you allow God to speak to your heart and that you give us a gift of your choice. We have several ways you can give. We have PayPal, we have Cash App, and if that doesn't work, we have good old-fashioned mail. Again, we have 3 options that you can give: PayPal, Cash App, and regular mail. Thanks.